maybe the low country. I don't recall which. I might have come from the city, but what city in what country is beyond me? I might have come from the outskirts of a city from which others have come, or maybe a city from which only I have come. Who's to know? Who's to decide if it rained or the sun was out? Who's to remember? They say things are happening at the border, but nobody knows which border. They talk of a hotel there, where it doesn't matter if you forgot your suitcase. Another will be waiting, big enough and just for you. How long do I read, Saskia? Is that enough? The Minister of Culture gets his wish. The Minister of Culture goes home after a grueling day at the office. He lies on his bed and tries to think of nothing, but nothing happens. Or, more precisely, does not happen. Nothing is elsewhere doing what nothing does, which is to expand the dark. But the minister is patient, and slowly things slip away. The walls of his house, the park across the street, his friends in the next town. He believes that nothing has finally come to him, and in its absent way is saying, "Darling, you know how much I have always wanted to please you. And now I have come, and what is more, I have come to stay." Dream testicles, vanished vaginas. I'm going to have to take a drink of water before I read. Eliza does this all the time.
Oh, bullshit.
Eliza is one of the greatest students, maybe the greatest student I ever had. I can tell stories about Eliza.
I can tell stories about you, Mark, so not related.
Well, anyway, back to dream testicles. Excuse me. Horace the corpse said, "I kept believing that tomorrow would come, that I would get up, put on my socks, my boxer shorts, go to the kitchen, make myself coffee, read the paper, and call some friends. But tomorrow came, and I was not in it. I found myself on a powder blue sofa in a field of bright grass that rolled on forever. How awful," said Mildred, who was not yet a corpse, but in close touch with Horace. "How awful to be so far away with nothing to do, and without sex to distract you. I've heard that all vaginas up there, even the most open, honest, and energetic, are shut down, and that all testicles, even the most most forthright and gifted, swing dreamily among the clouds like little chandeliers. The students of the ineffable. What I am about to say happened years ago. I had rented a home by the sea. Each night I sat on the porch and wished for some surge of feeling, some fire-lit stream of sound to lead me away from all that I had known. But one night, I climbed the hill behind the house and looked down on a small dirt road where I was surprised to see long lines of people shuffling into the distance. Their difficult breathing and their coughing were probably caused by the cloud of dust their march had created. Who are you, and why is this happening? I asked one of them. We are believers and must keep going. And then he added, our work is important and concerns the self. But all your dust is darkening the stars, I said. Nay, nay, he said, we are only passing through. The stars will return. The buried melancholy. I want to say something about Chicurico here. I think Eliza was with me. We saw an awful show, Lake Chicurico's, and I've always loved the titles of Chicurico paintings, but I wasn't that interested in the titles. I was interested in how awful the paintings were. I mean, he had a moment from 1911 to 1918, and then a precipitous fall into the abyss of some cockamamie modernity. But I made a note in my little notebook that said, those little legs and awful hands, which seemed to overwhelm my ability to see anything else in those tediously hideous works by an otherwise fabulously gifted painter. Oh well. I'm going to read a poem called Those Little Legs and Awful Hands. Night had fallen. A man who was staying at the Grand Hotel walked to the beach, lit a cigar, opened a black umbrella, and leaned back in a canvas beach chair, holding the cigar in one hand and the umbrella in the other. I wanted to ask him, why the umbrella? But I was too timid. Then I heard him say, those little legs and awful hands, will I never be rid of them? I patted my legs and looked at my hands and knew that he had not meant me, and certainly not himself, but maybe another, someone he might have hated or even loved. But down the beach, a woman wearing very large mittens was coming toward him, rapidly, with baby steps. He jumped up from the beach chair, tossed his cigar, and with his umbrella began to run. He ran and ran, trying to escape, as if he could ever escape. It's not a question of reading a short time. I mean, I like reading for hours. I'll just keep reading until people start walking out. Clear in the September light, a man stands under a tree, looking at a small house, not far away. He flaps his arms as if he were a bird, maybe signaling someone we cannot see. He could be yelling, but since we hear nothing, he probably is not. Now the wind sends a shiver through the tree and flattens the grass. The man falls to his knees and pounds the ground with his fists. A dog comes and sits beside him, and the man stands once again, flapping his arms. What he does has nothing to do with me. His desperation is not my desperation. I do not stand under trees and look at small houses. I have no dog. You can always get there from here. A traveler returned to the country from which he had started many years before. When he stepped from the boat, he noticed how different everything was. There were once many buildings, but now there were few, and each of them needed repair. In the park where he played as a child, dust-filled shafts of sunlight struck the tawny leaves of trees and withered hedges. Empty trash bags littered the grass. The air was heavy. He sat on one of the benches and explained to the woman next to him that he'd been away a long time, then asked her what season had he come back to. She replied that it was the only one left, the one they all had agreed on. The mysterious arrival of an unusual letter. It had been a long day at work and a long ride back to the small apartment where I lived. When I got there, I flicked on the light and saw on the table an envelope with my name on it. Where was the clock? Where was the calendar? The handwriting was my father's, but he had been dead for 40 years. As one might, I began to think that maybe, just maybe, he was alive, living a secret life, somewhere nearby. How else to explain the envelope? To steady myself, I sat down, opened it, and pulled out the letter. Dear son, was the way it began. Dear son, and then nothing. Poem of the Spanish poet. In a hotel room, somewhere in Iowa, an American poet, tired of his poems, tired of being an American poet, leans back in his chair and imagines he is a Spanish poet, an old Spanish poet nearing the end of his life, who walks to the Guadalquivir and watches the ships, gray and ghostly in the twilight, the stream. The little waves approaching the grassy bank where he sits whisper something he can't quite hear as they curl and fall. Now, what does the Spanish poet do? He reaches into his pocket, pulls out a notebook, and writes, black fly, why have you come? Is it my shirt, my new white shirt with buttons of bone? Is it my suit, my dark blue suit? Is it because I lie here alone, under a willow cold as stone? Black fly, how good you are to come to me now. How good you are to visit me here. Black fly, to wish me goodbye. The emergency room at dusk. Well, I'm gonna, short. Some of these don't have to be read. Pure self-indulgence. Maybe I should do what Robert Bly used to do. Little 6-line poems. He'd say, I'll read it again, just so you get it. After 3 hours, people were jumping out of the window. Provisional eternity. A man and a woman lay in bed. Just one more time, said the man. Just one more time. Why do you keep saying that? Said the woman. Because I never wanted to end, said the man. What don't you want to end? Said the woman. This, said the man. This never wanting it to end. The street at the end of the world. Haven't we been down this street before? I think we have. I think they move it every few years, but it keeps coming back with its ravens and dead branches, its crumbling curves, its lines of people just stepping from a landscape that goes blank the moment they leave it. And what of the walled city with its circling swallows and the sun setting behind it? Haven't we seen that before? And what of the ship about to set off to the Isle of Black Rainbows and Midnight Flowers, and the bearded tour guides waving us on? Yes, my dear, we have seen that too. But now you must hold my arm and close your eyes. An event about which no more need be said. Hear that? It's my bone. I have one bone. I used to have 2. One killed the other one. Well, anyway, back to the transcendent. an event about which no more need be said. I was riding downtown in a cab with a prince who had consented to be interviewed, but asked that I not mention him or his country by name. He explained that both exist secretly, and their business is carried on in silence. He was tall, had a long nose beneath which was tucked a tiny mustache. He wore a pale blue shirt open at the neck and cream-colored pants. I have no hobbies, he explained. My one interest is sex. It can be with a man or a woman, old or young, so long as it produces the desired result, which is to remind me of the odor of white truffles or the taste of candied violets in a floating island. Here, let me show you something. When I saw it, saw how big it was, and what he'd done to it, I screamed and leaped from the moving cab. A short panegyric. Now that the vegetarian nightmare is over, and we are back to our diet of meat, and deep in the sway of our dark and beautiful habits, and able to speak with calm of having survived, let the breeze of the future touch and retouch our large and hungry bodies. Let us march to market, to embrace the butcher, and put the year of the carrot, the month of the onion, behind us. Let us worship the roast or the stew that takes its place once again at the sacred center of the dining room table. Must be a lot of vegetarians in this. Well, when you're in college, why not experiment? It's those 90-year-old vegetarians that get on my nerves. Well, I don't write poetry anymore. Boo-hoo. I've given myself over to making collages. And this, what I'm about to read before I break this thing, is something of an explanation, a scant explanation for why this is so. A letter from Tegucigalpa. Dear Henrietta, since you were kind enough to ask why I no longer write, I shall do my best to answer you. In the old days, my thoughts, like tiny sparks, would flare up in the almost dark of consciousness, and I would transcribe them. And page after page shone with a light that I called my own. I would sit at my desk, amazed by what had just happened. And even as I watched, the lights fade and my thoughts become small, meaningless memorials in the afterglow of so much promise. I was still amazed. And when they disappeared, as they inevitably did, I was ready to begin again, ready to sit in the dark for hours and wait for even a single spark, though I knew it would shed almost no light at all. When I had not realized then, but now know only too well, is that sparks carry within them the wish to be relieved of the burden of brightness. And that is why I no longer write, and why the dark is my freedom and my happiness. Oh well, in the afterlife, I don't believe in the afterlife. We'll see. Maybe death will make a believer of me. She stood beside me for years, or was it a moment? I cannot remember. Maybe I loved her. Maybe I didn't. There was a house, and then no house. There were trees, but none remain. When no one remembers, what is there? You whose moments are gone, who drift like smoke in the afterlife. Tell me something. Tell me anything. On the hidden beauty of my sickness. Whenever I thought of my sickness, I would hear the melancholy sound of a viola. When I described it to the doctor, he heard the same sound. You should keep your sickness to yourself, he said. One cloudless summer day, I went outside. Some crows gathered around me and were silent. I took this as a tribute to the hidden beauty of my sickness. When I told the doctor, he said, "Your sickness may be catching and could ruin everything. Therefore, I am no longer your doctor." Yesterday, when I considered my sickness, I saw my parents naked in the baking heat, kissing and whispering. I was worried where my sickness was leading me and turned my attention to a distant town, to its golden clock, its white stone villas, its boulevards crowded with angels shielding their eyes from the sea, from the sun. The social worker and the monkey. This is the first of these that I wrote. Once I sat in a room with a monkey who told me he was not a monkey. I understood his anguish, being trapped in a body he detested. "Sir," I said, "I think I know what you are feeling, and I would like to help you." "Treat me like a monkey," he said, "it serves me right." Nobody knows what is known. Just a few more, a couple more of these. Finish. Nobody knows what is known. A man and a woman were on a train. The man said, "Are we going someplace?" "I don't think so. Not this time. This is already the next century. And look where we are. Nowhere. Tell me, Gwendolyn, when we boarded the train, why hadn't we known this day would come?" "Snap out of it," Gwendolyn said. The train was crossing an endless snow-covered plain. No town awaited its arrival. No town lamented its departure. It simply kept going, and that was its purpose, to slither dreamlike over blank stretches of country, issuing sorrowful wails that would slowly fade in the cold. This is the last one I'll read. Nocturne of the poet who loved the moon. I have grown tired of the moon, tired of its look of astonishment, the blue ice of its gaze, its arrivals and departures, the way it gathers lovers and loners under its invisible wings, failing to distinguish between them. I have grown tired of so much that used to entrance me, tired of watching cloud shadows pass over sunlit grass, of seeing swans glide back and forth across the lake, of peering into the dark, hoping to find an image of a self as yet unborn. Let plainness enter the eye, plainness like a table on which nothing is set, like a table that is not yet even a table.